上一集我们讲到了跟无法沟通的同事来沟通，我们利用了 D.E.E.P 的模式作为一个引导。那今天我们就要来继续这个话题，但是我们要来讨论的是，如果对方是我们的主管，那我们应该怎么办才好呢？Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管与沟通力的 Podcast。I'm Sherry, an educator, certified coach, and style enthusiast. 我相信专业有效的沟通是语言跟逻辑的完美结合。
And I'm Nick, a startup consultant, corporate trainer, and late-night gaming junkie. I believe great communication requires the right mindset and solid frameworks.
我们希望带给大家职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。
Join us each week as we share our experience, research, and methodologies to take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast. Last episode, we talked about how to be non-committal and non-provocative, or just walk away from a conversation you don't want to have. Well, what happens when you need to communicate with someone who you have a hard time communicating with and you don't have a choice, like reporting to your boss? How can we use the D.E.E.P framework to think about how to have better communications in this situation?
所以上一集我们讲到了 D.E.E.P 嘛 Don't defend, don't engage, don't explain, and don't personalize. 那这个也是 Dr. Ramani 所强调的一点，就是无论如何，这个是我们等于说有点像心中的那个灯塔吧。只要你一乱的时候，或者是开始觉得那个烦，然后那种心情不好的那种感觉要起来了，你就要想到这几点。那当然我们在职场上面或者在生活上面不太可能说我不想跟这个人讲话就不用跟他讲话，尤其是如果他是你的主管，那该怎么办？Today, we wanted to cover more on when you absolutely do have to talk to someone at work, aka your boss or your manager, but how do you talk so that you can still kind of protect yourself and you can still walk away in a very peaceful and healthy state of mind?
In the case of having these conversations with someone you don't have a choice, preparation is key. It's actually just as important what you do ahead of time as what you do while communicating with them. So in the event that you're about to go give a presentation to your boss or go have a longer conversation with someone, thinking about the steps ahead of that conversation is part one. Part two are the actual phrases or communication techniques you use while having the conversation.
So Dr. Ramani 就讲到了，不管怎么样，你第一步要先想到你的这个长期的计划是什么。你跟这个主管，你是希望能够长期的合作下去，你想要继续在这个公司等到你有个 promotion， 还是呢你觉得我可能明年我就可以离开找更好的工作或者更适合我的工作。所以先想了解一下，也就是如果你的计划是你要长期待在这公司，你需要这个工作，你想要借由这个工作得到更好的 promotion， 那我们可能就要比较有系统的还有比较聪明的来去 plan out 我们跟这个人的所有的 conversation. Kind of like what Nick said, the preparation is really important. And number two, which is another thing that's very important when it comes to talking to people that find very difficult to communicate with, is get your docs in line. 也就是你绝对要把所有的你们的 conversation 都能够放在一个 document 上面，也就是你的 email 或者 text message. If you're sitting in a meeting talking to someone, and Dr. Ramani actually talked about this. She's like, one thing you can do actually is type down the meeting minutes afterwards and then email to this person and go, can you clarify, are these the things that we talk about? And at least have that written documentation.
Yeah, and this can also just be a good habit because a lot of people have a tendency to think out loud. Which means it's not that they try and change the facts or change the truth. They're thinking while they're talking. So they may make a statement that to everyone sounds like, this is what we're going to do. This is a declaration. But in their head, that actually hasn't registered. And so by documenting it, you can bring it back in, or the meeting minutes is like, this is what was said. Do we agree upon that? Or this is what you said before. Is that still true? And what you're doing is now getting them to commit to a statement rather than just going, oh, no, I was just thinking.
And also another thing that is really important, and I think Nick kind of mentioned that, is that you need to start prepared and get your ideas organized. 也就是当你要走进去这个 meeting room 之前，你先把你想要讲的话，还有你的这个 proposal、你的 presentation， 你要把它非常整理好。也就是呢，你要记得你要用的是facts, meaning that things that this person has mentioned before, and you actually have a backup, you have a documentation to show that this is something that he or she said before.
Yeah, and this becomes, again, important when you were talking about a meeting situation, having meeting minutes, because you may not be recording every meeting, obviously. Other things is just, again, making sure that you have a strong basis that if you have a point that you want to make, it's always good to have something to back up that point. Or if you want to make a counter argument or counterpoint to someone said, it's always easier to say, well, okay, this is what was said before, so this is why I made the plan. And make sure that the other person is withhold to the statements they've made before.
Right. 那因为我们现在在讲的是一种 difficult conversation， 那可能对方他明明做了一件事情，但他今天讲说，我没有做啊 I didn't do this, or completely just kind of really manipulate the truth. 那这个时候呢，你可以第一个步骤当然是先深呼吸breathe, and then you can say, oh, you mentioned this, or in this email dated back in January 2nd, you mentioned this, and you actually have a documentation to prove. 那这个时候呢，就是你非常有力的一个工具。
Yeah, and this is not just necessarily to your boss. I've had to deal with customers a long time ago when I was working with trading companies, and a customer would be like, well, that's not what we ordered, that's what I did. And I would actually have to dig out the emails, highlight, this is what was said, this is what's agreed upon, this is why the contract. And not doing it in a very confrontational way, but again, is sometimes when we get into this passionate argument that you do need someone to go back and go, no, here is what I have to show that what's going on.
Yeah. 真的去记录很多之前的 conversation or email and stuff, that's really, really important, especially in the workplace. And again, 刚刚 Nick 讲说你不用很 confrontational 这样子的 tone, right? 你可以讲说你之前提到you mentioned this, could you just clarify? That's it. You don't have to say like you lied. You didn't say this and have a proof. Don't go that route. Just go, you mentioned this. This is what you said. Could you please clarify?
The last step that you can use, and tends to happen again in these difficult communication situations where it tends to either get heated or, right, like that person has to have the last word, that person always has like an excuse or another reason, is they have a tendency to take the conversation into a tangent, which is usually a way for them to distract from the main problem and actually bring it back to, why are you getting so defensive? Why are you getting so emotional? We're just talking about business. The last real key thing that you have to be able to do is bring a conversation back to either the main point or to bring the conversation back to your frame of what's going on. So again, if you're there to present a project, you're there to talk about your ideas, you have to bring it back to that. And if they go off on a tangent, they try and change the conversation, you can just firmly but politely go, while I understand that you're thinking about this thing, we still need to answer, or we still need to work on this, and then bring it back to the conversation you're trying to have, rather than engaging, again, that don't engage in a completely different conversation.
Absolutely. Or just say, let's focus on the issue at hand. Okay. 如果你今天要讲的 topic, 你的会议, 你的这个 discussion 是 centered around, let's say A, 那你就一直 bring it back, keep on bringing that back, because oh my god, 有些人非常会把 conversation 带到一个你根本不知道什么样的地方，然后你讲完之后你会自己觉得很 confused. You feel so confused, like what just happened in this conversation? Like what happened? 然后你自己会觉得怎么情绪那么的多? You know, you start to get more emotional because you kept on getting pushed and pulled to a different direction. So just go, let's focus on the issue at hand, which is this. So just go, let's focus on the issue at hand, which is A, not B, not C, just A， 就 keep bring it back， 而且不要害怕，就是他可能还会继续再往其他的地方走，但是你还是不断的就是把它带回来 ，bring it to your topic.
And this is a lot of that. Don't engage, don't explain it, don't personalize. That doesn't mean don't talk to someone. What it means is like don't engage is when they choose that secondary topic, don't engage in that topic. And if what happens is when you engage in that topic, you often end up explaining. Because someone will be like, well, what about this thing? And then you're trying to explain, but then you'll find that that explanation is creating another discussion. Also, personalize is someone, that frustration or that personalization is often also like, there's always that person who will make a mean comment. Family members do this to us all the time, where it's like, it actually has nothing to do with you. Maybe they're just frustrated, but they'll make some offhand comment and that triggers you. And then you start engaging and explaining other things. So really it's about, okay, let's focus on the issue at hand. Let's come back to what we need to answer today. It's about reframing. And if you can, at least for the moment, let go of the rest and bring it back, you can finish your conversation to where you can walk away and then process a different time.
That's very true, because when you start to have these kind of conversation, 我觉得应该真的很多人，你如果有这样子的经历的话，我相信你应该很了解这种跟这种人讲完话之后，你会觉得你好像没有任何的 energy 了，你好像完全被抽干的那种感觉。所以这个时候我们真的要很努力的一直要想 D.E.E.P. Use that as a guiding post. Always remind yourself. 然后你可以想象自己是一个非常沉稳的一颗大石头 Just a stone. You're a stone. You're sitting there. You're not affected. 当然这个非常不容易 But I think if you had this experience or you are experiencing this kind of difficult conversation in your life, then I really hope this could help you, because it sure helped me a lot before. Yeah.
So another way that I've heard this described a lot is a dock in an ocean, which is like when the ocean or the weather is bad and the ocean has huge waves and it's turbulent, a dock's job is just to kind of float there and be stable.
Yeah.
And it may not always be easy, but that's kind of your goal in the end.
Exactly.
Is to weather the storm. Then you can go process your emotions. It doesn't mean don't have emotions, you can go process it after. But again, if you're there to get the conversation over, when you go into defend, engage, explain, personalize, now you have just extended a conversation you don't want to have.
And you probably will end up saying something that you're not supposed to say. Or a lot of emotion just came up. 但是 again, 这些 emotion 可能是对方想看到的，但是你等于说你就是给他想要的 That's completely unnecessary. And especially at work, I think we all need to learn how to be not professional for other people, but professional for yourself. Again, 这个也就是自己这种你要怎么样在公司保有你自己的一个原则嘛。So I think I'm really hoping that this can help everyone at work in your life as well.
Yeah. So we hope that you learned something from this process, got a little bit from D.E.E.P, and of course, check the show notes for more resources on these ideas. And we'll talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
The Executive Plus podcast is a Presentality Group production, produced and hosted by Sherry Fang and Nick Howard. You can search us on Facebook, 主管英文 Executive Plus. You can also find us on Instagram, Communication R&D, and email us at sherry@epstyleplus.com.